you for joining us for this Holy Week series of devotionals, where each day we take an event from Jesus' life that last week before Easter and talk about it with you. The Bible isn't explicit about what happened on the Wednesday of Holy Week, but most biblical scholars believe that Jesus took time to withdraw, to be alone with the Father and rest on Wednesday. Sandwiched between the triumphal entry on Palm Sunday and the Last Supper on Maundy, Thursday, we find this account of Jesus' week in Luke 21, verse 37 through 38. And every day he was teaching in the temple, but at night he went out and lodged on the mount called Olivet. And early in the morning, all the people came to him in the temple to hear him. It appears Jesus was urgently sharing his message during the day, but withdrawing to be alone with the Father and rest in the evening. So as we reflect on the Wednesday of Holy Week, we're reflecting on the practice of withdrawing, something that Jesus did frequently. In fact, after Jesus' baptism by John the Baptist, which marked the beginning of his public ministry, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all describe that Jesus was led by the Spirit to be alone in the wilderness for 40 days. He withdrew. And while he was there, we know that he was tempted, withstood temptation, and was ministered to by angels. It was a time that he was able to prepare for what lay ahead. When he came back from the wilderness, Jesus began moving around the region, teaching, healing, and driving out demons. After one such day full of teaching and healing, we find this account in Mark 1:35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, went out, and made his way to a deserted place, and there he was praying. I imagine after a day full of giving so much of himself to other people, he wanted to spend time alone with the Father and just refresh. The same story is told in Luke 5, but it tells us that the crowd came and found Jesus. He rarely got time alone unless he withdrew on purpose. Does that sound familiar? Is your life like that, full of family obligations and career? Would it be helpful to you to spend some time withdrawing? We see that in Luke 6:12, Jesus often withdrew to deserted places and prayed. In fact, he believed so much in withdrawing that he encouraged his disciples to do the same thing. And we see a story in Mark 6 that says, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a remote place and rest for a while." For many people were coming and going, and they didn't even have time to eat. So they went away in the boat by themselves to a remote place. But as often happened to Jesus, the crowd rushed ahead of them and was waiting on the shore when the boat reached the other side. Jesus saw the people and had compassion on them, and he taught them all day long. As the sun was beginning to set, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "How are we going to feed all of these people?" And that's when Jesus performed the famous miracle of feeding the 5,000. After everyone had eaten, the disciples collected the scraps and took them away. Jesus told the disciples, "Go ahead, go on your own in the boat again, go off by yourselves." And the story continues in Mark 6, verse 46. After he said goodbye to the disciples, he went away to the mountain to pray. Well into the night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and Jesus was alone on the land. Once again, after a busy day, we see Jesus withdrawing to be by himself, and not just for a moment, but well into the night. One last example I want to share with you of Jesus withdrawing comes from Luke 22, verses 39 through 41, and it happens on the night before he was crucified. It says, "He went out and made his way as usual to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he reached the place, he told them, 'Pray that you may not fall into temptation.' Then he withdrew from them a stone's throw, knelt down, and began to pray." This is in the Garden of Gethsemane and is one of the most famous prayers in the Bible, where Jesus pours himself out to the Father, asking that what's about to face him would be removed. And yet he finishes that prayer with, "Not my will be done, but yours." Jesus gives us examples of when he withdrew. After a long, maybe challenging day, and when he was facing trials, like the few days before he was about to die on a cross for us. Yet despite the day or the trial, Jesus regularly withdrew to be with the Father. Does that give you some ideas about when you might withdraw? When you've had a hard day? When you're facing a challenge? Or maybe just every morning to get centered with the Lord and give Him control of your day. So I want to leave you with 2 questions about withdrawing. The first is, do you take enough time to withdraw like Jesus did? And the second, if the Son of God needed to withdraw to spend time with the Father, don't you? I hope you can answer yes to both of those questions. But if you didn't, I encourage you to take some time today to withdraw to a quiet place and just be alone with the Lord. Give praise to Jesus for what He's done for you. Thank Him for the many blessings in your life. Confess where you've fallen short and give Him control of your life. I promise if you do, it will make a difference. And it will prepare you to celebrate Easter and Jesus' resurrection. Happy Easter. He is risen.